killed 7 people yesterday before taking his own life. Among the dead, Dantzler's daughter and an ex-girlfriend. After those killings, Dantzler took off through the streets of Grand Rapids, guns firing. He then led police on a chase down 131, then I-96, at one point going the wrong way. Then he ditched the SUV and took 3 people hostage in a home on the city's northeast side. After a 4-hour standoff, Dantzler killed himself. All 3 hostages survived. They're all okay.
As we await this news conference this morning, we still have several questions that we hope to have answered. Why did he do it? We know it may have to do with an ex-girlfriend leaving him. Who are all of the victims? Exactly which order did the killings happen? And what happened inside that house where the hostages were held?
Mayor Hartwell is apparently going to start this off. Let's listen in now as they begin the press conference discussing this.
Good morning. I'm George Hartwell, Mayor of Grand Rapids. The events of yesterday have shaken our community to its roots, and they test our will under fire. What happened on the streets and in the neighborhoods of Grand Rapids is so uncharacteristic that it boggles the mind to even imagine that it could happen here. First, I would call our community to prayer for the victims of this horrific incidents of domestic violence. 7 people dead, 2 of them children. 2 others, innocent bystanders, wounded. 3 people held hostage. Neighborhoods traumatized. People all over the city deeply distressed. We are a caring community, and I call you today to care for your neighbor. Talk to each other. Reassure one another. Pray for the friends and the family members of the victims. Second, I would praise our Grand Rapids Police Department. They performed their duties masterfully under the most adverse of circumstances, from their relentless pursuit under fire through the streets of the city of Grand Rapids, to the patient, skillful negotiations that were carried out, negotiations that saved 3 lives. Our police were courageous. Our police showed professionalism. This community has shown its faith in and support of our police department, and yesterday we saw played out in full view through the media coverage just what a wise investment that has been. Area law enforcement joined us in this effort, and I give special recognition to the Kent County Sheriff's Department and the Michigan State Police, who joined us in the direct intervention. Federal agencies were involved, the FBI, the ATF, the U.S. Marshal, and then police departments from our surrounding neighboring communities, Wyoming, Kentwood, Rockford, Walker, even Kalamazoo, who supported us throughout this event. I would also wish to express appreciation to Life and AMR, the EMS services who were there with us last night. And then, of course, our fire department, who was on scene and present for, and available for any eventuality. Third, I want to thank our citizens for their solid, active involvement with tips, with support and encouragement and appropriate response to our police department when they were advised or instructed. Citizens of Grand Rapids, you performed well. Finally, I want to compliment the media on the professionalism that you all have shown throughout this event yesterday. I know that that you, in some cases, stretched the rules of confirming sources, and you told us you were doing so, but you did it to inform and protect our citizens living in the neighborhoods who were at risk. I appreciate that, and I thank you. We may have been shaken to our roots, but our roots are deep, and our faith is strong, and our commitment to our home is unshakable. Today we show why we are a great people. Let me introduce to you Chief Kevin Bell to talk more about specifics of the incident. Chief.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for being here. As well as the Mayor said, yesterday obviously was a very difficult day for our community. Certainly our hearts go out to the families and the friends of the victims of these tragic events that occurred yesterday. For reasons that we may never understand, Rodrick Dantzler took 7 lives yesterday at 2 locations in our city. The victims have been identified as Jennifer Marie Herron, who we believe was an ex-girlfriend. She's 29 years old. Camry Deanne Herron Dantzler, 12 years old, daughter of Jennifer and Rodrick. Rebecca Lynn Herron, Jennifer's mother, 52 years old. I mentioned Camry was 12 years old. Then Thomas Herron, Jennifer's father, 51. Those were the victims that were found on Brainell Court Northeast. On Plainfield Avenue, we've identified Kimberly Ann Emkins, 11 years old. Amanda Renee Emkins, 27 years old. And Marissa Lynn Emkins, actually, I'm sorry, she is 10 years old, and actually Kimberly, I believe, is the someone who previously dated. So I don't have her age with me right now. Perhaps one of our command officers could get that for you, but I'm sorry. Kimberly previously dated Rodrick Dantzler, but our investigators have learned that for some reason yesterday, Rodrick Dantzler went out hunting down ex-girlfriends and at least one other woman that he had a long-term friendship with, and tried to kill them. On Jennifer Herron, one of the victims on Brainell Court, was an ex-girlfriend with whom he had a child in common. Their daughter, Camry Dantzler, was also identified as one of the victims, along with Rebecca and Thomas Herron, Jennifer's parents. On Plainfield, as I said earlier, Kimberly Emkins was an ex-girlfriend. However, investigators believe that that was an older relationship without any recent contacts between Kimberly and Rodrick Dantzler. The other victims on Plainfield, Amanda Emkins, Kimberly's sister, and Marissa Emkins, Amanda's daughter. Just before 3 p.m., our 911 center received a call from a man who had encountered a subject that was driving a tan Lincoln Town Car, the vehicle that we believe Rodrick Dantzler was in. He was in the area of Granville and Martha when he had a conflict with an individual that was driving that vehicle. That subject then fired several shots at him. He was struck, I believe, in the face, causing a non-life-threatening injury. At about 7:02, a woman who identified herself as a longtime friend of Dantzler contacted the police department and said that she saw Rodrick Dantzler in a vehicle following her. She described the vehicle as a white Suburban and said that she was being followed into the downtown area. Near the corner of Division and Fulton, Dantzler pulled up next to her and fired one shot. Officer Luke Naxum, who was responding to the 911 call, had gotten to that location. He immediately rammed Dantzler's vehicle and ended up, Dantzler at that point fired several shots at him. Officer Naxum returned fire. Neither of them was injured during that exchange. Dantzler fled east from the scene with other officers in pursuit. The pursuit continued on city streets, with Dantzler again firing at pursuing officers. Officers returned fire in the area of Lydia and Eastern Northeast, and other officers deployed stop sticks or spike strips in the area of Lion and Diamond. The stop sticks punctured at least 2 of the tires on the vehicle Dantzler was driving. However, he continued to flee. Eventually, Dantzler was able to get onto I-196 and headed westbound. He then went on to northbound US 131. We had officers that had deployed themselves along the route. We had officers at Leonard and at Ann Street, who had, one of them had come up from Ann Street and protect himself along the barrier there. Both were able to fire one round each from a shotgun at the vehicle as it passed by. Obviously, it was going, we believe, about 40, 50 miles an hour at that point. We do not believe that Dantzler was injured during that exchange. He continued to flee with officers in pursuit, and ended up eventually getting onto I-96. While he was going eastbound, he actually crossed over the median and went into the westbound lanes, driving against opposing traffic. As officers continued to pursue him, his vehicle eventually went off the road and into a wooded area and struck a stand of trees that was heavy vegetation. At that point, he got out of the vehicle and fled on foot. Officers were in pursuit. He quickly forced entry into a home that was just off the expressway, and once he entered the house, there were several shots fired. He immediately called our 911, or very shortly after, called our 911 center and told them that he was in the house and that he did have hostages. With the officers pursuing, they quickly set up a perimeter on the home and were able to determine that he was there. Additional resources were brought in. Our special response team, our hostage negotiators, they began to communicate with Rodrick Dantzler. He eventually agreed to release one of the hostages. Initially, we were under the understanding that there were 2 hostages inside of the house. We later learned that there was a third person in there who had hidden in a closet. The person was a visitor to the home. And after releasing the one hostage, 53-year-old female, there was conversations between the gentleman that was still at the scene, who was, my understanding, hard of hearing, and was agitating the suspect, Mr. Dantzler, that he was not able to hear the person well, and it was agitating him. At that point, the other victim came out of the closet so that she was able to communicate with Dantzler at that point. And the negotiations continued on, obviously, for several hours, and then unfortunately, as time went on, Mr. Dantzler placed the firearm up to his own head and took his own life. So, again, as the mayor said, we certainly are very grateful for all the support that we received. Certainly, again, I'll just repeat it, but the Michigan State Police, tremendous amount of resources, their helicopters, other personnel, the Sheriff's Department assisted us almost from the beginning on this event. We had offers of help from our federal partners, FBI, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, U.S. Marshal's Office assisted. As was said, Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety certainly offered their help. Kenwood Police Department, the Wyoming Police Department, Rockford Police Department, the Walker Police Department, and of course we also had the assistance of medical personnel from AMR, and then also the Grand Rapids Fire Department that were there both for medical, and then in case there were some chance that there might be a fire at the residence. So again, very grateful. A tragic event, and but again, as I said last night, I am extremely proud of the Grand Rapids Police Department, of my command staff that is here today. I think they performed admirably. The officers that placed themselves in harm's way in order to bring this person into custody, I think, again, performed admirably. Our negotiators were skillful. Unfortunately, the outcome is not what we would have liked, but we are certainly extremely pleased that 3 of the hostages that were in there were able to be taken out safely. So in the end, a very difficult day for us. So with that, we'll take some questions.
Yes, I wanted to ask James Gimmel, WJRW, about the weaponry. I mean, how many magazines did he have? Was it just this .40 caliber semi-automatic handgun? Given all the bullets that were sprayed, what do we know about that?
Well, we do have an understanding of the .40 caliber. The history of the weapon we don't yet have. I know our investigators have been working on that. They may actually know that. Again, obviously, with these events unfolding rather quickly, there's still an awful lot that we are learning and that we are piecing together. Much of the information while we have it in various locations, trying to get it compiled overnight obviously wasn't possible. But we do know that he had obviously a large amount of ammunition. He had more than one magazine, which he was using during this event. So where the firearm came from at this point, we don't know.
Does that suggest to you that he may have premeditated, as you said, hunting these female friends down, that he stockpiled a large amount of ammunition? He was premeditating compared to one?
Oh, I don't think there's any question in my mind that this was premeditated. He went out hunting these people down, and you know, it was very much a purposeful act. These are not, as I said, the one individual on Plainfield, our understanding, they hadn't even had contact in I don't know how long, but certainly wasn't anything that was a current relationship. So.
Was there something that triggered that? During the fact you said you hadn't been in contact with some of these people?
We don't know what triggered it. Why? You know, yesterday became a day that he went out and sought his revenge for whatever reason. We just don't have the answers to that at this point.
What can you tell us about his mental status?
Well, I don't have a clinical diagnosis. Obviously, he's a very troubled individual and involved in some horrendous activity, but the actual diagnosis, I don't know. I do know that after this event, we do know that he was using some cocaine and alcohol after the homicides that occurred, but whether he had used them prior to that, we don't know.
Chief, do we know if there were other injuries? For example, the vehicle, the chase vehicle, how did he get that, or were there any traffic-related injuries?
Yeah, initially he had a vehicle that we believe was his, the Lincoln Town car. After the incident at Granville and Martha, we had the conflict with the individual and fired shots at him. He ended up contacting an acquaintance, told him that he had gotten into some issues and needed a ride. He abandoned the vehicle in the area of Godfrey and Chestnut, and what we believe was picked up by an acquaintance of his in this white Suburban. So it was, this individual was still with him when the person on Plainfield contacted the police, and when our officers got behind and began to engage the individual, he pulled over and he jumped out of the vehicle, and Rodrick Dantzler then continued on with the car with that individual left at the curbside.
That house on Plainfield, was there a confrontation at all with Dantzler and the people who lived there outside? Are you aware of anything like that, some sort of argument or a confrontation out front before?
I have not heard that, no.
Do you know if he was off medication for being bipolar, or if he had any mental problems that he was taking drugs for?
I don't have that information right now. Obviously, in the ongoing investigation, we'll try to learn much of that.
Chief, the bullets that were fired in the area of the police department, you stated earlier that that was because an ex-girlfriend was in the area, but given the proximity to the police headquarters, do you know if that had any agitation, or was that just ironic that he happened to be right here?
Well, I think it was ironic. I mean, she was just southbound on Plainfield, eventually hitting North Division, and just, I think, a coincidence that they ended up in front of the police department when this incident occurred.
Do you have any
child
concern?
on Plainfield also his child, or is that a separate child?
I do not believe so, no. I don't think so.
Do you have any concerns about how information sharing is changing with the police scanners, for example? Not only news media have had access to that for a long time, but now the general public also can log online, find that information, and tweet or Facebook unconfirmed things. What do you have to say about how information was shared?
Well, really, the public has had access to police channels for my entire career, so that isn't anything new. Obviously, technology makes it a little more portable, a little easier to obtain, but that's just something that we deal with.
Chief, can you talk a little bit about preparation? Clearly, this was an event that you could say that you could prepare for, but I don't know that anybody was prepared for it. But what kind of training do you have to deal with a guy who literally is spraying bullets all over the place?
Well, we are very much engaged in a scenario-based, dynamic training. Our training division commander, Lieutenant Dan Lynn, does an excellent job. I believe that we have the best training of any department that I know, but we are very much engaged in shooting on the move, a number of scenarios that we debrief on incidents that occur within the area, and certainly train our officers so that we can make them as prepared as we can. But a great deal of time and effort goes into our training of all of our officers. Obviously, our tactical team, our negotiators have a significant amount of training beyond that in their specialty, and they train on a very regular basis.
You might have talked about it, but can you talk about the time frame between both the houses and the crime scenes? long it took from how long it was between what happened at the one house and then what happened at the second house?
We don't have the exact time frames of when the homicides occurred. That is something we're still trying to piece together. We'll have to do that through timelines and contacts that people have had with other individuals. But right now I don't have a good understanding. Our belief is that they all occurred yesterday, early afternoon, but we've not been able to put that information together yet.
Do you have his criminal history? Do you have his criminal history, what he's been convicted of or charged with before?
I don't have that available right now. I mean, we can make that available afterwards.
Mayor,
I've been able to figure out what went down in the houses. I mean, what happened when you killed them? Was there struggles or chasing through houses?
Yeah, I don't have good, solid information on that. Obviously, they were in there. He had a firearm. Obviously, was able to overpower them and shot them. I don't have the details.
David?
Mayor, this has been a very difficult week, I think, for a lot of people, considering the July 4th incident and this incident. A lot of people can say that this is a very difficult time for the city. Clearly, it has been. Is this community changed because of what's happened over the last week with the two incidents, the violent incidents? What do you say to people to reassure them this community is safe?
I think that's an appropriate question, David, and I'm sorry you asked it. The fact of the matter is we are the same community today that we were a week and a half ago. We're a strong, dynamic, growing community, a thriving community, a community that values relationships at a very high level. We have two incidents that have occurred that have been smears, if you will, on our very good name. This incident of yesterday, a lone gunman on a single day, a man who, by all appearances, was mentally unstable, who was engaged in an awful act of domestic violence, and then went on this rampage. I don't for a minute think that defines Grand Rapids in any way, or that it suggests that we are a city that's different, that's changed, that's less safe today. In fact, I would argue that the response that we saw from law enforcement yesterday proves what in our hearts we've known all along. This is a community with a tremendous commitment to public safety, and that is no different today, perhaps even stronger today than it was a week ago.
Chief, in that vein, there's been a lot.
I might add, too, that we have seen over the last several years, I think, significant drops in serious crime in Grand Rapids. So Grand Rapids is certainly a far safer place than it was before, but it is a great community. Everyone in here that is familiar with Grand Rapids knows that to be true, and certainly we're a vibrant community, and we're strong. As the mayor said, obviously two incidents don't define who we are.
Historically, where does this stand? Has there ever been anything like this that the department or the city's dealt with before?
Obviously, we deal with tragedies. I don't recall anything that was of this magnitude.
Talk about your chase protocol a little bit and how successful you felt you were in that effort.
Well, I mean, we have a very strict chase protocol, but obviously situations like this allow you to expand that. I mean, we have a dangerous felon who is on the loose that certainly presents an ongoing threat to our entire community. It is certainly appropriate to chase. Obviously, their chases are extremely dangerous, and for that reason, we only chase for the most serious and violent felonies. But obviously, this was a case where it was extremely appropriate. I think our officers did extremely well. There were 3 different officers that had contact, if you will, rammed the suspect's vehicle. Obviously, a large Suburban, was not easily to be disabled, but that wasn't for lack of attempts on our officers' parts. They put themselves in harm's way to get out to the street to get the stop sticks deployed that obviously slowed his vehicle down, made it less dangerous than it would have, made it more difficult for him to control, but it caused him to go at lower speeds than perhaps he would have. So I think those actions, obviously resulted in this incident slowing down from the speeds that it could have actually obtained. So, I think they performed extremely well. Everything I've seen has been consistent with our policy, but as with any incident, we obviously will review this thing. There'll be a lot of reviews and debriefings on this incident for quite some time.
There's nothing at this point that you can tell that you would like to go back and change, that you clearly at this point say that there was any mistake made at all?
I'm not aware of any, but obviously we'll review that. But as I said earlier, everything I've heard, you know, the officer out in front of the building, that when shots are being fired, you know, he ends up ramming this car, obviously distracts the attention from the intended victim to him. He ends up taking several shots. Many of you have seen the pictures of the cruiser that was out in front. You see several bullet holes right in the front windshield. I'm amazed that the officer was not injured, and certainly extremely thankful for that. But you know, he did a marvelous job, as well as other officers, again, that put themselves in harm's way to try to bring this this dangerous person into custody.
Speaking of video, what kind of video do you know that might be available? Have you heard from any businesses or anything like that beyond video that was shot on M.Dot cameras that we were watching live, or TV coverage? Are you aware of any other videos that may have been shot in neighborhoods or by businesses?
Well, I'm certain there were, and we'll be, you know, in our ongoing investigative effort, you know, we'll certainly be trying to track those things down. But, you know, what extent there are videos available, I don't have that information.
Chief, there's been a lot of support that we've heard from the public for this department and its efforts in this situation. What's your response to that?
Well, I'm very grateful for that. I've had comments from people throughout our community, sending me emails, sending me text messages, just expressing their gratitude, and I'm certainly thankful for them. I know that the reality is many people were praying for us throughout this event, and you know, that's pretty important, so we certainly appreciate that.
Chief, how many officers were working on this case at one time?
What's that?
How many officers would you say were working on this incident at any one time?
I don't have those numbers. I mean, a large number. Obviously, we had it started during our day shift. It continued. We held them over with our second shift coming in early because of the events of the day. We had our special response team on. So, you know, I've got to believe we had, you know, well over 100 officers involved in this incident. I had probably 150 at least.
Chief, should we get spelling of the victims' names?
Yeah, I'll get them to you afterwards here.
Chief, when you were talking about the public and their prayers, you got a little bit choked up there. How difficult is the situation been on your end?
Oh, obviously it's difficult. I mean, and you know, we'll be dealing with that. We have a peer-to-peer support team, and they'll certainly, you know, be reaching out to the officers. We have another individual, Dr. Paul Liberto, who certainly consults with us, a psychologist that will come alongside our officers, and just to make sure that the difficulties that they went through yesterday, that you know, those things aren't forgotten. We don't just move on. You know, we try to address those issues with them, and make sure that they're okay. I mean, it's difficult work, and you know, it's tough. You have that those incidents happen, and you just continue on. I mean, it's a career they've chosen, and I mean, they're heroes, and I believe it to my core, and they put themselves out there, protect us every day, and throughout this country, there are officers that do that, and you know, occasionally they end up giving their lives for it, and we ought to all be grateful.
Chief Belch, the officer, or I mean, the person apparently took a ricochet bullet near the police department here. Is that what happened? The person received a shot in the arm. We had heard a report last night that it may have been a ricochet off a building or something.
No, that is actually the woman that he pulled up, that he was acquainted with, that he fired a shot into her vehicle. So no, there's obviously, as this thing was unfolding, you get a lot of information that's unconfirmed, and you know, caution even today. I mean, I believe what I'm telling you is totally accurate, but you know, with this thing being very fresh, and you know, trying to put this information together quickly so the public is aware of what happened, you know, there certainly could be some errors in what I'm telling you. I believe that it ought to be true, but that's one that obviously early on we were concerned that there was someone that was just a passerby, but it was actually his intended victim.
Let me note that on Wednesday evening this week at Second Congregational Church in the Plainfield Avenue in the area where the events took place, we will be holding a community event for any of those people living in those neighborhoods who wish to come to learn, to support one another. Second Congregational Church, 7 p.m. on Wednesday evening. We're going to be available to respond to individual questions as we close this down now. In addition to the chief and me, we have our city manager, Greg Sundstrom, deputy city manager, Eric DeLong, our chief of the fire department, as well as two of my city commissioners who are over here with me today from the 2nd Ward where this incident took place, Commissioner Rosalind Bliss, Commissioner Ruth Kelly. So thank you all very much for coming out this morning, and we'll be happy to respond to individual questions.